From the land of not-so-frozen lakes, this is 10,000 Takes. Brought to you by Minnesota Score Radio. Wally and Eric back for yet another week as we slice and dice the always busy, always topical, super saturated Minnesota sports scene. Let's see, Wally, since we last spoke on this set, we've seen a Super Bowl champion crowned. We've had Valentine's Day and Ash Wednesday come and go. And oh, by the way, pitchers and catchers have reported to the Cactus League in Arizona and the Grapefruit League in Florida. Play ball.
Yeah, well, baseball is here, thank goodness. Because if you're a Vikings fan, the season ended a little too early. If you're a Wild fan, you have no idea what's going on with this roller coaster ride they're on. And then there's the Timberwolves, who are building us some hope, but we know the history there. So, yeah, pitchers and catchers are in. Position players come in on Sunday. And I think that the Twins are probably going to be the favorites again in the AL Central. And there's a lot circling around a couple of things. One, will Byron Buxton be able to play on a daily basis? I think that's been a question mark for the last few years anyway. And out in the outfield, not just DHing, but they need him out in the outfield. And two, have they done enough to supplement that pitching staff, which lost Sonny Gray and Kenta Maeda? I know they picked up Anthony DeSclafani. He looks like he's at the bottom of that rotation. He'll be the 4 or 5 starter in that rotation. We shall see. I mean, Sonny Gray brought a lot to the table. Kenta Maeda helped at the end of the season when he was healthy. Those are some big shoes to fill.
Yeah, and they've lost some position player depth in Nick Gordon and Jorge Polanco. Right. Michael A. Taylor's not coming back. And you brought up Byron Buxton. Now, a year ago, when they made the trade with Kansas City to get Taylor, we thought, okay, he's going to be Byron's backup. He's outstanding with the glove. Well, it turned out that Byron Buxton never touched the outfield grass. He was either playing DH or he was injured. Right. So Taylor gave him probably more than they thought they'd get offensively. They must have known something, they being the Twins, when they made that deal. So now they must know something as well. They must be confident that Byron Buxton's going to go out there and play his natural given position, center field, because who's the backup? Who's the guy you're going to plug into center field? It's not Gordon. It's not Taylor. Who is it?
I don't know. You move Kepler over into center field, I guess, on a daily basis.
It's a critical position. You talk about winning with defense and, pitching. Well, you better be strong up the middle.
Yeah. I mean, Wallner obviously looks like he's going to be an everyday player now. Probably in left field.
They wouldn't dare put Royce back out there, would they?
Oh, boy, let's not do that again. I want Royce in the lineup.
It didn't work out too well.
He was out there, one game, crashed into the center field wall, was out for the year.
Turned into Torrey Hunter.
Oh, yeah. No, he turned into Byron Buxton. Well, he was on the injured list.
Torrey ran into walls, but he got back up.
Yeah.
Byron doesn't.
Byron just goes down. So, no, I'm looking forward to it. Spring fever is here when pitchers and catchers report, so it's all good. I mentioned the Timberwolves a moment ago, and they have, I don't know, they're so talented, yet they're so immature. They go into Los Angeles and they beat the snot out of the L.A. Clippers earlier this week. This was on Monday night, and they looked really good, particularly in the third quarter. They blew them out of the water. But does that make up for all these losses to really mediocre and bad teams? I mean, the loss to San Antonio, the loss to the Chicago Bulls. I mean, you can go on. The list is the Charlotte Hornets. They're not good losses.
Yeah, they've had red flag losses, but they have been able to rebound. They do get up for the opponent. Water seeks its own level. If they're looking at the Bucks or the Clippers or the Celtics, they're sky high. I think if you see the Hornets or the Spurs, it's like, oh, okay, we'll go out and mail it in, and that doesn't work in the NBA.
No.
Even the bad teams are good. It'll be an interesting second half. Look, they have a chance to do something that has only happened here once.
Right.
and that's be the top seed in the West.
Yep.
And I've said all year, okay, if you're not going to be the number 1 seed, you better be at least the 2, 3, or 4, garner home court advantage, at least in the first couple rounds of the playoffs. They're very good at Target Center. I think they feed off the energy in that building, that shrunken capacity with the tarps. There's a lot of a lot going on in Target Center. They've cranked up the volume.
Right.
And then you got Ant, and you got Cat, and you got all the stuff going on. It's commotion. It's tough for an opponent to come in there and win. But Denver's not going to go away.
No. And the Clippers aren't either.
No, they're not. And Oklahoma City, I think, is, if the Timberwolves look in the mirror, they see OKC. Young, bold, and brash.
Yeah, and OKC is very talented.
They're more than okay, right?
Yeah, they are more than okay. Are you a believer that this team can make a run in the postseason is the question.
If they play that signature defense we've seen in most games, if they can keep other teams, stifled like they have on many nights with Rudy G leading the way.
No doubt.
I mean, he's a force down there on the block in the paint. And if they have the defensive mindset, like we saw in the third quarter against the LA Clippers on Monday night, if they can come out and apply that kind of pressure and be aggressive on the offensive end, not stand around and, just wait for things to happen, yeah, they can do some good things. They're very talented. They're well coached, but they still have to prove it.
Are you going to be tuned in to the All-Star game? Because that's when you're going to see Chris Finch and Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards. They're all going to be there in what? It's in Indy this year,
Indianapolis.
Right? It's in
yeah.
India this year, yeah. So you're going to be tuned in?
I don't know. I don't ever say I'm going to force myself to watch an All-Star game unless it's Major League Baseball. We'll see what I'm doing. I know you got Minnesota Gopher hoops this Saturday, I think, at the barn. You've got the Wild playing Sunday games, Monday President's Day games. There's a lot going on.
So you're saying
no NFL, though.
I was going to say, there's no National Football League. What are you going to do with your life? You better get the NFL Network somehow.
Well,
Can you get that with an antenna? Because I know that's the only way you watch TV these days.
Let me tell you, I do love baseball. And
well, you're going to have to wait for baseball unless you're like spring training. So you're not watching the All-Stars?
Probably not.
Okay.
I don't know. It's just another silly exhibition.
The best players in the world. All right, we got more to come. We're going to talk some Gopher hoops, right?
Yeah, we are 10K takes your T-Wolves ticket.
Here at Keyport Liquor, we've been voted #1 for over 20 years. Our prices are the best, our selection can't be beat, our customer service is second to none.
True love stories never have endings. However, they do have beginnings. Congratulations on your engagement. Begin planning your special wedding day at weddingsoflakeville.com, where you'll discover over a dozen reception venues accommodating up to 600 guests. Go to weddingsoflakeville.com and choose settings that are intimate, serene, outdoors, historical, state-of-the-art, traditional, and even country club style. Feel confident. Weddingsoflakeville.com provides recommendations from businesses we know and trust.
10,000 takes, Wally and Eric, and we're going to talk some Gopher hoops. And they have had, I think, a season that not many people expected on the upside, although they have had some losses that are forgettable, particularly the loss last week at Iowa. We're going to talk now to Marcus Fuller. He is Star-Tribune beat writer for the Minnesota Gophers. And Marcus, let's start with that Iowa loss. It was really a dumpster fire there down the stretch. They had a 20-point lead. Dawson Garcia gets hurt. But you can't use one guy getting hurt because he may foul out. He may be sick one night. You can't use that as an excuse to blow a 20-point lead, can you?
Well, you can. I mean, obviously, Ben Johnson's team obviously is not a one-man team. First of all, the first 25 minutes of that game, it was probably the best stretch of basketball that they played all year. And it wasn't just about Dawson Garcia. I mean, he had 18 points in the first half. They shot 11 threes. They were getting probably the best defensive effort as a group. And, Iowa was one of the most highest fences in the country, and they were held to 38 points at halftime. It's the first time, by the way, that the Gophers led at halftime in the Big Ten.
Right.
And, at that point, the way they were playing, you definitely felt like it was going in their direction. It was not like the Kansas City Chiefs being down 10-0. But you figured Iowa was going to make a run. And even before Dawson got hurt, Garcia got hurt in the second half. Ben talked about the 12, 13-minute mark. In the huddle, he just felt like there was just something missing from his team. The energy, the effort on defense, obviously the toughness that they need to win on the road. And I think you're right. One player cannot take that away from you, but certainly it shows you what kind of leader that Dawson Garcia is and what kind of player he means to this team.
Marcus, the Big Ten is not a powerhouse conference this season. Only 3 ranked teams as we speak. So the Gophers, if they're going to get into the NCAA tournament, how many wins do you think they need? And will losses to Iowa, Wisconsin, even Missouri early in the year, will that hurt the Gophers' chances?
Yeah, I'm not a bracketologist. I might add that to my title at some point if the Gophers start making more tournaments. But I think that if you look at their non-conference schedule, that is the number one thing that is holding their resume down. They have the worst ranked non-conference schedule in the country, according to Ken Palm. I'm trying to do my homework as much as I can about past resumes, but I believe that that would be the worst non-conference schedule to ever make the NCAA tournament. And so that means that they have to do all of their work in conference. And, there have been years where the Big Ten has gotten 8, 9 teams in the tournament. This is not that year. This is a down year in the conference. Obviously, Purdue, that they'll play on Thursday, is the number 2 team in the country. And that would be a tremendous win, probably the best win that this program has had in more than a decade. But I think it's not going to take just one win. They have their first quad 1 win, and I don't want to get you guys all caught up with the net, but quad 1 is basically the best win that you can have on your resume, and that was Michigan State at home. There are 3 more quad 1 wins opportunities left. You have Purdue, you have Illinois, and Northwestern on the road. So I don't need to be a bracketologist to let you know that you probably need a couple of those wins to give yourself a chance. And we've been watching this program for a long time, guys, and it seems like every year, no matter what they do in the regular season, we're always talking about a couple more wins or a run in the Big Ten tournament to make the NCAA tournament. And I think that's where we're headed this year.
It is fair to say, however, that, it's obvious they're way better than expectations, at least from the outside looking in. And for the most part, Ben Johnson appears to have what he wants in place: his system, more talent, and they're headed the right direction. Because I think that there were a lot of folks who were wondering, okay, is this going to be the year? And if not, what are Ben Johnson's chances of making this a go?
Yeah, I think that you're right about the fact that, the last 2 years were not a very good indication of where this program, the potential of this program. And once he got his players developed, we're talking about a couple freshmen or a few freshmen and Pharrell Payne, Braden Carrington, and Josh Ola Joseph. Once he brought in the right transfers, He has obviously two starting guards, and Mike Mitchell, and Elijah Hawkins leading the country in assists. Once he grabbed one of the best players in the region, in Illinois, out of high school. He's not just recruiting the state of Minnesota, but he's recruiting outside the state. And Cam Christie, you put all those pieces together and you have his most talented team yet. Now, did we think that this was going to immediately turn him into an NCAA tournament team? They were predicted to finish last coming into the Big Ten season. So not a lot of people knew that these pieces were going to fit together in the way they have. But you're right. I think that this program is going in the right direction now. What that means for this season, nobody knows for sure. But we do know that if he's able to keep a lot of these players back next year, I would say that they're definitely going into the season with NCAA tournament expectations, not only internally, but obviously maybe around the country.
Marcus, last week I was at that Michigan State-Minnesota game at the Barn. I saw you briefly, and I thoroughly enjoyed the experience. I think the Barn is a historic venue, not only in Minnesota, but around the USA. But we all know there's either going to be a new arena or a better barn someday. I'm hoping they renovate the Barn, keep it, and continue to play in it. Where do you land on all of this?
Yeah, I was just saying that I think the better barn headline is what I'll put on my story when I start writing about about the renovations. I think what's happening right now is that there's a lot of talk about it, right? I mean, we're talking about it, donors, boosters, fans, obviously even the program is talking about it within the players and coaches. But I think what you're saying is absolutely right. I mean, there's things about the barn, especially the raised floor, that if you take that away, then it takes away what's unique about Gopher basketball, something that people remember for generations. And whether they've won a championship, that Big Ten championship that's not in the banners, and a Final Four that's not in the banners, you'll always remember the moments you had on the raised floor. And I think that there's a way for them to keep a lot of what makes the barn unique, but still make renovations. I'm not the one they've called upon to make these decisions. They might have to make quite a bit of change, or even completely overhaul the entire arena to make something that obviously it's worth the money. I talked to Randy Brewer, legend on the 1982 Big Ten championship team. And he talked about the fact that if they're going to make changes at Williams Arena, they definitely can't do it on the cheap. And again, if you're talking about a major reconstruction and a lot of dollars, it'll be hard to keep that raised floor, because you're going to have to obviously put a product there that can not only host basketball but many other sports as well.
Well, Marcus, I would make the argument that they should be playing the state high school tournaments there, the boys tournament that they moved over to Target Center, primarily for the larger classes. I like to see the whole thing over at Williams Arena because, and as I've talked to coaches, including our friend Larry McKenzie, you want to get the players in Minnesota used to playing on that floor. So that's a nice recruiting tool for Ben Johnson or whoever's running those Gopher programs, be it men or women. Your thought?
Yeah, I was sitting with my son at Williams Arena, and I watched Braden Carrington and Park Center win a championship there, and that was a bright moment for Braden. Being on the floor that he would definitely take into his college career, winning a championship. I know that there's a lot of players there that grew up watching the Gophers and whatever teams that they had. But again, standing on that court in front of the fans in a moment like that is something they'll never forget, whether they play for the Gophers or not.
Yeah. Well, Marcus, we appreciate you spending some time with us. I know you've got hopefully some extended work to do this year. Maybe the Gophers will get a postseason bid of some kind, and you'll be able to write through the end of March.
Yeah, we'll be looking forward to the Big Ten tournament here in Minneapolis.
That's for sure.
Can't wait, men and women.
That's right, both.
Thanks, Marcus.
He's Marcus Fuller.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you. He is a beat writer for the Star-Tribune covering the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Eric and I will be back after this timeout. Stay with us.
Finding the ideal place to stay is important for business travelers. Lakeville, Minnesota is conveniently located off I-35, just south of the Twin Cities with a variety of hotel choices. Lakeville offers convenient amenities such as shopping, walking trails, golf, and more. Our unique meeting spaces, historic downtown, live music, and over 60 dining options are sure to impress. Book your next stay in Lakeville and experience convenience, comfort, and quality. Find your perfect hotel at visitlakeville.org.
Welcome back. 10,000 Takes rolling along. We haven't talked hockey yet, so let's get into the Minnesota Wild and let's try to figure out the Minnesota Wild. I mean, they are the yo-yo team of all yo-yo teams. They're either really good and on a roll or really bad and they're a dumpster fire. And we've seen them both. Which Jekyll or which Hyde are we going to get down the stretch becomes the question.
Yeah, they're like that hot stock. Once you buy it, it drops off, and then it becomes a stock you want no part of. Yeah, I can't figure the Minnesota Wild out. I will give the team credit, though. They keep battling. We all bury them, and then they go on a winning streak. How about Monday night of this past week? That might have been the pinnacle week of the winter for Minnesota sports fans. T-Wolves win at the L.A. Clippers. Wild win at the Vegas Golden Knights. Those are two good wins. I still think it's going to be a difficult climb for Minnesota. The problem with the hole they've dug is they don't have a lot of wiggle room. So if they go back in the tank and lose 3 or 4 in a row, then they'll be in dire straits, as they say. But last week they had a huge win over Pittsburgh because that night they honored Marc-Andre Fleury, who was a Penguin. So he got the W in the nets. Kirill Kaprizov scored, I believe, the game-winning goal, and they even saw Sidney Crosby score for the Penguins, but Pittsburgh lost.
Yeah. So the next question becomes, are they going to make some kind of move here down the stretch? Because there are teams, apparently, that want Philip Gustafsson, their goaltender. So do they move Gustafsson going forward? Do they hang on and just sit tight with what they have and let the chips fall where they may?
Well, I've said all year, I think their goaltending is inconsistent, and I don't think they have Stanley Cup-esque goalies. I mean, Marc-Andre Fleury's going to the Hall of Fame, but that's based on what he did with the Penguins. Gustafsson's just been too much of a roller coaster. He's kind of a reflection of the team.
Yeah.
So if they do deal Philip Gustafsson, that would signal to me that they have their eye on next season. Bill Guerin has to make that decision. Oh, by the way, the Team USA coach in the Olympics, Bill Guerin.
Yeah. Well, he'll be scouting.
That's right. That's right. He gets a trip, I think.